to be with your group today, because I think that education, and then now it's time that we look to the FBI and Justice Department to investigate this entire judicial system in Cecil County and do your job under 9-4200 of the Justice Department guidelines for prosecuting fraud. You have an oath of office that you've taken, FBI director. You get on the stick and start wiping out some of this corporate fraud that's destroying these families' lives.
Well, this doesn't only stem. I mean, when I told you I'd get back to why I said what I said is it doesn't only stem from just these cases. The judicial system here in this county alone is known for the good old boy system. Everyone knows that, including Washington, including Baltimore, including the FBI, and including the Grievance Commission, because I was told by more than 3 people in these cases that were either FBI or a grievance investigator or a federal investigator, that they knew that there was corruption in this Cecil County itself. They have tried to get in and infiltrate it and to break it down, but it's so tight-knit because it stems from not only the judge and the clerk of the court who are doctoring documents and covering up for these attorneys that are involved in this tight-knit group, but it also stems from the bank, Cecil Federal, that is the main money market of this county. And in Charlie's case, same thing happened. He was actually he was on payroll for Mr. Riddle because he's a plumber, so he did our rental units. So he had personal mixings with Mr. Riddle. Mr. Riddle represented him. Riddle represented him in 2 separate cases, civil cases, and a personal injury. Did not finish the personal injury. I did for him after I left. Because out of 2 years, you never heard a word about personal injury. After I left there, the personal injury actually had expired. I made 1 phone call, and in 2 days, he had money from the insurance company. And so that was false representation from Mr. Riddle. He did not fulfill his obligation as a personal injury attorney. So it does stem from, it's not just the judicial system, it's the people that are involved.
Everybody you named, the clerks of the court are members of the bar. The judges are members of the bar. The prosecuting attorneys are members of the bar. The investigators are members of the bar. The FBI agents are members of the bar. 85% of our members of the House and Senate are members of the bar.
Right. And
okay.
The sad part
is it's a wheel and spoke conspiracy that spawns off conspiracy after conspiracy, and nobody is willing to stand up and say, what about the Constitution? You know, what is this? Constitution. Piece of garbage? You don't have any rights? You don't have any rights? According to this, everybody here today has rights that need to be investigated. They need to have their properties given back to them. They have to be compensated for all the losses that they've suffered as a consequence of this fraudulent conduct. So,
well, like I said, it stemmed from the whole. It stems from this whole entire tight-knit community and what they formed here. And my thought was, when you go to the Attorney Grievance Commission, that's the highest place you can take it. They're supposed to be there to look out for you and to reprimand their attorneys that are representing them, and if they've done something wrong. However, I found out through this whole entire investigation and everything that we've been through, that there is absolutely no one they can turn to that will step in and help them and stand up for their civil rights.
And you can't go to, the thing is there's a chain of command in this government that was formed by our founding fathers. Okay? And our founding fathers had no idea. They couldn't have imagined in their wildest imagination the formation of a monopoly to take over our judicial system. Okay, the American Bar Association is a criminal body that has taken over control of this country in just 100 years. 1908, when they formed their first corporation. They've taken over this country. You can't go, like you said, you should be able to report this to your local congressman, Gilchrist, but you can't. They'll dismiss you, they'll throw you aside. None of the people on the county board will, that's a joke. Because we don't have, and it gets right down to this election that's coming up, we don't have enough citizens in this country who are willing to get involved in the electoral process and to get people who are not attorneys in there, get people who have, and then we'll move on to victim number 6.
I did want to say this, that it was a clear cut, to me, it was a clear cut case, and I know Josie's case, I know Mark's case, and I know Marty's case, Charlie's case.
Thank you.
Sorry, Marty. I know for a fact it was clear cut unethical behavior. There should have been no questions about it, because there was actual paper proof, actual paper trail, mainly in Josie's case, that she had actual original documents. It was clear case of unethical behavior. So in my book, there should have been no questions. The investigation shouldn't have taken as long as it did.
Well, the reason that is because the American Bar Association wants us to lose. So
I was also told by the federal
we
government.
We need to change the zone. I think I'm down to
do unethical behavior. The FBI and the federal department doesn't want to get involved in individual cases. That's for the judicial system, and they don't want to step in. However, they wanted to investigate him because what he was doing is unethical as far as the financial end. He's defrauding everyone because he's triple dipping. He's representing them as a client. Some are personal friends, and he's representing them for a fee, so he gets paid for that. Then he represents them on the sale of their properties as a settlement attorney and does his own settlements, so he's getting a fee for that. And then thirdly, he turns around and buys the property and he gains asset by that.
and then for the bank.
Correct. So he was
Which
triple
means
dipping.
that it's more than triple dipping. This guy led a whole new meaning to the insider's action. So, well, once again, we're back here, and we're going to go to witness number 6 here.
Number 8.
Number 8. Number 8.
Let me
Excuse me, but Charlie, let's hear your wonderful story, because so far we've had a pretty good day.
Not
Not the redneck version.
Yeah, the
Good
redneck.
one. That's the good one.
Nothing but the redneck version. Okay.
All right.
Because they're the ones getting robbed the most.
Yeah, that's it. All right. I had acquired 3 acres with 13,000 square foot of building space on it. It was commercial space through a deed of trust from my uncle who raised me. When he passed away in 1999, I was to inherit the rest. I couldn't get the will. So I went to Riddle, and he said, no big deal. He said, we'll just ask for writ of discovery. And that didn't happen. He said, well, we may have to wait until they file for foreclosure, and then I'll file for a writ of discovery. 3 days before foreclosure, he comes to me and he says, guess what, it's too late, I can't file, you'll just have to buy the property back. You have to let them foreclose and buy it back on the steps. So I got my $10,000 check, went to the courthouse, bought it back for $331,000. As soon as I bought it, that second, a man walked up to me. He said, you Charles Azen? I said, yes. He said, you've been served. I acquired a $380,000 lawsuit from my aunt's lawyer. While I was looking at the lawsuit, Will Riddle, standing next to me, ran in the courthouse and bought my property. Simple as that.
You're kidding me.
No, I took pictures. I had my son-in-law there taking pictures that day. I can show you everybody that was there.
And how did you find out that?
He never
didn't
came,
see Will.
yeah, Will never came back. I couldn't find him. I traipsed all through the courthouse. I finally went to his office. He's sitting at his desk.
What was the outcome of your case with your aunt?
Nothing. She got the money.
She got the $330,000.
She got the $331,000, her and her lawyer. Yep. And
You had no defense?
I had no defense. I went and hired another lawyer. He told me the cause was lost, and just to take my lumps and go on. I went.
Oh, I
that,
hear that so often.
That was
Makes me wanna-
Edwin Fockler IV,
Who
That-
was a person?
who was a
Yes.
personal friend of Will's. Come to find out.
Okay.
And who Will called and said, please talk to John.
Yeah.
Will called.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy you were trying to get action against
Yeah.
calls and recommends that he contact you.
Well, he offered me half of it back in the corporation. Then, in the same breath, told me that I was going to lose my house and that I should take my house and put it in his corporation.
A different piece of property.
A different piece of property. This is my own private home. Actually, it was a house that I sold to my daughter a year before,
Who Will did the settlement.
who Will did the settlement on. And I said, wait a minute, how are they going to take the house? My daughter bought it last year. You did the paperwork. Will goes, oh, well, then in that case, never mind. Nonetheless, so I went and hired another lawyer, Bob Valiant Jones. First thing he did is call Riddle on the phone. We had a meeting. Come to find out, one of the owners of my property was going to be my best friend's son that was involved in the corporation. His name is Butch Ritchie. And by the way, he just drove past just a few minutes ago when I went
And
outside.
he's on Will's payroll.
Yeah, he's on Will's payroll.
A personal.
Yeah, he just
who's
drove
his
by
own
and see who
personal
was here.
contractor.
He goes over and reports on us.
Oh, okay.
So I talked to this Bob Valiant Jones. He said if the cause was lost, I should just file bankruptcy and go on. Then turned me over to his sidekick, Jason Allison. They did take, I gave him $1,000, and they took it up to the courthouse to get the $380,000 lawsuit, which is what they call double dipping.
Right.
Got it dropped to about $50,000, and then a year later took it again and got it dropped to $10,000. And now that lien is on my home.
Is Jason Michelle's brother?
No, Michelle's brother used to run the.
No, Todd.
Yeah, that's Todd
Carol.
Carroll. Yeah, he was involved in too. He's the one that makes up the corporation. He worked at the courthouse.
Who?
Todd Carroll.
Only for a short time.
Only for a short time. Yeah.
However, your case is just like Josie's case. Will had a personal interest with you because he represented you in a personal injury case, in a civil case
Yep.
that you have in court that you're still pending.
No, I lost that.
Well,
I lost that.
and you went to him about this piece of property, about the estate issues, and you asked him, you got paperwork on it.
I have paperwork.
And you went to him and said, what is this about? So he counseled you
Oh, yeah.
on that same piece of property.
Oh, and he sent letters
turned-
out. He sent letters to my aunt and her lawyer, you know, asking for the will, and
Was
they
the will ever read publicly?
no,
It was in a different state.
It makes no difference. It has to be a public reading.
nope.
Right.
They
He was never invited to a public reading.
No, I'm sorry. It's a nullity then.
Will said that they would never show us that will, that they would burn
Burn
it
it
before they
first.
showed it to us.
Well, then you know, the whole thing's you know, that's what the sole purpose of a will
That's right.
is, to protect the rights and liberties of
Well, the law stated that you have to put a will in the courthouse.
right.
Okay, well, they put a will in the courthouse. I went to West Virginia and got the will, and it said, there is another will. And my uncle's lawyer had it. And then when we asked the will from him, he said, no.
And
You gotta be kidding me.
Not even kidding. Got the paper.
Yeah, this is interstate conspiracy.
and
Yeah, this is an interstate conspiracy between the members of the bar.
well, they tricked him too. The
Yeah.
aunt tricked him by calling him in after the uncle had died and said, "We need you to sign these papers so that everything can go through." Him not knowing and thinking that she would ever defraud him herself,
But
knowing her husband's wishes, that he raised Charlie. There was two pieces of property in question. The grandson or the nephew was to get the one,
Her son.
and Charlie was to get the commercial piece of property that he had always worked on had always maintained,
Right.
Always lived there.
has lived there, has paid the taxes on in all these years. So rightfully, it was Charlie's piece of property anyway, because he's paid the taxes on it every year. They sat him down, said, sign this paperwork, and in a few weeks, you'll get the paperwork, everything will be fine. He signed the paperwork, not knowing that it was a mortgage she wanted him to pay for that piece of property. So that's what he actually originally brought to Will and said, what is this? Will said, well, it looks like you owe her such and such amount of money. He said, no, I don't. When my uncle died, there was no money, that was to be, I was inheriting it. And Will said, well, we'll work on it. And months would go by and nothing would get done. He'd get a letter from the aunt's attorney, and he'd come back in and say, what's going on? And that's when Will told him, it looks like they're gonna foreclose on it unless you can come up with this lump sum of money. He said, just let them foreclose, and this is what he has advised a lot of clients. Let them foreclose on it, go buy it back at the auction steps. That's why he took his advice. He counseled him. He let him foreclose on it. He went to the auction steps, had every intention of buying it, not knowing that his confidant and best friend's son, whom he worked with closely every day on Will Riddle's own investment properties, had undermined him and gone to Will and said, look, we can get this piece of property. In turn, they both started a corporation, Mr. Riddle and his best friend's son, Butch Ritchie, started a corporation, went inside when he was served with the papers, bought it under their corporation, so now he was partners with his best friend's son. So Charlie in turn goes to the office and says, why'd you disappear? Where'd you go? He said, oh, I went inside and
I bought your property.
He said, how's that possible? He said, well, we didn't want him to take it out from under you with that lawsuit, so I just went in and bought it real quick. How do you do that without being prepared and having a check or
Yeah, he had
money
the
in your
check.
hand?
Yeah,
I still had my
certified
check.
registered check it had to be.
Yeah.
Certified registered check. You tell me this isn't Marvin Hirschman, this is not a conspiracy. You moron. You absolute moron.
In my book, it was every single one of those cases is clear-cut, unethical behavior. It shouldn't have been blown up this far, because when you represent a client for that issue that you turn around and are the reciprocating party on,
Right.
that's the unethical behavior. And it's clear-cut. There was evidence in every single one of their cases. There should have been no questions, not even a 7-8 month investigation to any of it, because it was clear-cut.
Well,
the evidence was there.
it had your corroborating evidence as his legal secretary.
I was dismissed as just being a peon, somebody that did the mail and answered the phone, when in turn, it doesn't matter whether I was a peon and just answered the phone. I did file documents every day in the court for him. I did his dictation every single day, so I knew every
You're the one who typed these documents up.
every letter that went out of there. I basically.
Riddle told you at the grievance commission that you should stay in there and spar.
Oh yeah, when we first talked to the grievance commission, she asked me why I left there, and I said because I can't work for somebody that's unethical, and I feel guilty for it.
Right.
And she said, why don't you try to stay there and get more information? I swear to God.
Well, what that leads to, I'll tell you what that would have led to. That would have led to, if you would have stayed there, then they would have called him, and he would have framed you up for theft of internal documents,
There you go.
and you would have been in jail.
Well, I
That's-
knew they were.
that's-
I knew they were planning something against
Yeah,
me.
that's the way they work. We'll totally discredit this person. We'll frame her up, and we'll say she stole some documents or she stole some money from the trust account. I wouldn't even want to think about this guy's trust account.
He's got 3 different accounts.
Yeah, but the trust account are sacrosanct, and if he's doing this with the regular accounts, he's robbing the trust accounts to pay for these properties. He's moving people's money
He
from
does.
A to B, and that is and once again, the American Bar Association doesn't give a damn. No, so
And again,
no,
not only is it William Riddle, but the money he gets is from Sposado.
right.
So it's always the same names you'll see in every case.
Same names in
Same.
every case.
Every
Everybody
bank.
goes same bank, same names, same
Yep.
same
Well,
people,
within
same
10
prescriptions.
years of being a lawyer, he's got 48 property.
Well, Gilbert Saperstein acquired, MarylandCorruption.com sent me up a list of title searches he's put on his property. And in the last 15 years, he's acquired like 275 properties across the state of Maryland for $5 or less.
Come on.
Okay, and it's all the basically same scam. They use the bankruptcy court, they get them in bankruptcy, then they go to these straw sales on the front steps.
That's,
And so the wealthy and the rich and the, it doesn't, you go out and hijack a truck today, like they did back in the 50s and 60s. In the 50s and 60s, you'd hijack the mafia would go onto the docks and they'd hijack a truck and they might get $30,000, $40,000. Okay, and then they'd have to go out to the effort of actually getting out of their vehicle, going onto the dock, hot wiring the vehicle, driving it off, and taking a chance of getting caught. Now they got smart. They sent their kids to college. They became lawyers, and now they just do it with a pencil. I could steal more money with a pencil than you could ever steal.
With a
No.
gun or a knife
No,
or
I've got a tape done in 1997 in the U.S. Justice Department at the National Press Club, videotape. And at that time, they were saying that white collar fraud at that time, and this is way before Enron and all that stuff, was costing the nation 1,000 times a year more financial losses than all other criminal activity combined. That's drug dealing, it's armed robbery, it's breaking and entering, it's theft off of jobs. 1,000 times. Now it's probably 5,000 times that, because Enron, they stole more money. Enron stole more money from the people of the United States in 2 years than all other criminal activities recorded in history.
Wow.
And did you see one of them go to jail?
One of them died from a heart attack.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the rest of them are not
He's in
going
the
to jail.
eternal jail.
They're not going to jail. They go in, they get to go to a judge in New York. New York judge says, well, I'm sorry, stockholders, you all been defrauded, but you know what?
They get slapped on the head.
Statute of limitations, we can't prosecute this.
They get slapped.
And that's what I'm about. I'm about the land of the scam and the home of the fraud, the United States Judicial System. So now we're gonna break off. We've heard all your stories. And I appreciate everybody being here. Now we're gonna break off into little groups and do an individual story, three, 4 people, so that we can go a little more in depth in this. And you're a key player. You are
Oh,
absolutely key.
she is a key player.
And I'll be honest with you. I am personally going to send a copy of the DVD of this. I want your name and your address and all your information. I am personally, matter of fact, I will taking a copy to the U.S. Justice Department on Pennsylvania Avenue and handing it to security guard on Monday morning. Because we are all at risk. We are all at risk, and because we're exposing something here that nobody wants exposed. But you, because you are Riddle's ex-secretary, because you have the knowledge, and because you have the courage as a citizen,
There's a
To
fine
come
line
forward.
between courage and foolishness.
We have financial sources, her daughter works at Cecil Bank.
okay, well, then, if your daughter working at Cecil Bank, so everybody, we need to know, this is serious. And as a reporter, I will make sure that this DVD gets delivered to the Justice
So
Department,
we're protected.
where, I would request each one of you to write an affidavit that you believe that your life is in danger, to support it. Okay?
That's never been a question in my mind. I've always thought
Yeah,
that
that's never
was
been a
the
question in my
Well,
mind.
I'm the same way. Like I said, I've had officers of the court pull guns on me numerous times.
Okay, do you need to have Josie type something up?
What's that? For me?
An affidavit.
If Josie can type it up, all you guys can sign it, I'm
Yeah.
just,
She won't.
and,
Oh, I
okay.
mean, that's our technical.
But I mean, that,
We'll
well,
get a
see,
secretary.
Our
this is,
secretary
this
can
is
do it.
what, and this is what we need a unified group of
Right.
citizens
Right.
To stick together.
to stick together, and they can't, this is something that the FBI and Justice Department is not gonna be able to throw out. This includes, actions across state lines. This includes federal banking statutes. This includes, tampering with the court records. This includes outright conspiracy. It includes extortion and racketeering. Now, all of those are adequately right here in this book. Okay? And the Justice Department and the American Bar Association have a duty and a responsibility to protect your rights and your liberties. So, okay, so for right now, this is George McDermott signing off for Secret Justice News, the Victims Roundtable from Cecil County, Maryland, the land of the scam and the home of the fraud. God with us today, and we will pick this up. And I
Thank you, Mr.
really,
Chairman.
George.
yeah, okay, so, okay, we can cut to that one. Part three. George McDermott here again. This is segment 3 of the road trip to Cecil County, the land of the scam and the home of the fraud, where the court system is routinely taking the rights and liberties of the citizens of this county and denying them due process rights in order to line the pockets of the wealthy attorneys and court insiders within the state of Maryland, particularly in Cecil County. And we've heard the opening statements on these on prior shows. Now we're going to go a little bit more in depth on each one of these victims, and hopefully they'll be able to explain a little bit more in lay terms. We don't need this legalese that the court wants everybody to believe. Let's get off of that. Let's do what's right. Let's use the law of common sense, the law of right and wrong, the law of justice for all. It's time that the victims have their say, and it's time that the media wake up and broadcast this event throughout the country, so that we can take the first steps here today to taking back the courts of the United States from the gangsters that now control it. So, Mark, glad to have you with you. I'm glad that you know, and we both realize that this is a huge step. We realize the consequences of going against such an organization, and an inside click as you have up here in the court system, that the consequences are grave. But on the other hand, you know, if it wasn't for brave citizens such as yourself coming forth and telling these stories, then the next generation will inherit the corruption that is overtaking our nation. We can't allow that to happen. So let's move on, and tell me what you would like to see happen.
Can you edit that tape?
Yeah, we can. But let's be a little, you know, I know what you would really like to have.
Saul, something this is slow.
Yeah, but
All right. Yeah, that's right. I'm really doing it now for the people of the future.
Right.
So, because I've learned to deal with my loss, though it would still pull me out of a tremendous hole.
well, talking about your loss.
Yeah.
Okay, give the viewers an idea of what the loss amounts to, because people don't realize that when you're defrauded of your rights, not only do you lose a monetary value, you lose what you could have and should have earned in due course, it also has to have had a horrible effect on your family and your grandchildren. For you to stand up.
Grandchildren, I'm not that old.
What?
I'm not that old, I don't have any grandchildren yet. I just have 7 children.
Well, okay, but
I know what you mean.
but it's taken a tremendous toll on them. If the loss is what you're saying, they've been deprived opportunities other children would have to go to proper colleges, and that will affect them and their children. And the average American has no idea of what they're being robbed of. So try to outline your loss.
I'm going through that right now with my children, what I'm not able to do. And I'm not talking about being able to send my children off to some Princeton or Yale or something. I'm just talking about the strain. I can't. The mental and the emotional part is. I've been always a stand-up guy and could take a lot of hits, but it beat me to the ground. It beat me completely down. Where it was hard to get up, and we're still struggling. I mean, I got a son now, 17. I still haven't gotten the driver's license yet. I know I can't get my car yet. Things like this, and you can edit that out or whatever you want to. I'm just giving an example.
This is important. He's 17 years old. He'll be graduating high school next year. Okay, and if you can't get him a car, the odds of him getting to a better, a higher level education have been diminished so dramatically that it will affect his life earnings. It's already destroyed your life earnings. So, under Article 19, that's why the Constitution they have, under Article 19 of the Constitution, okay, it says right in here that not only do you have a right to collect in a court of law and equity the losses that you have, the consequential losses, but you have a right to collect the punitive and the exemplary losses that are a direct consequence of fraud on you. So, how much have you lost? Bottom line, what was your original loss?
Original.
Just ballpark.
Oh, wait, at least $250,000.
Okay, when was that?
When we went to settlement.
Year, what year?
July 2003. July 31st, 2003. Let me try to get it lined up here. And then when he takes that building, now in the meantime, Hurricane Floyd had come through here in September of '99 and wiped my business out that was inside of this building. In Bridge Street, Melton. And by February of 2000, we had to close up. So, but this whole building is still in litigation, which Riddle's my attorney, going through all this. So when I lost that business, I had about $253,000 in debt. So it didn't work out the way I planned. I planned on still having the business and this building, but now I'm just looking for this building to clear my debt because I knew I was able to buy it for $450. Yes, exactly. What it was appraised at and the rental income that was coming off all the properties would have paid everything for me, my PTI, and it would have paid those monthly payments for me with the leftover to keep me going until I decided to go ahead and just turn around and sell it because the equity that was in the building would have cleared that $250,000 debt that I'm still paying on today.
So that's, and the insurance company didn't rebuild your business, they weren't willing to.
No, I had every other kind of insurance, but flood insurance, yeah.
Every insurance but flood insurance, okay, so not only did you lost all they've stolen your means to rebuild your life. Now they compounded like they have done with me, and they have taken away any chance of you ever recovering anything. And you know what? Even the mafia. I lived in Newark, New Jersey in the 60s, 50, 58, 59, 60. And I had the pleasure of living up there with the mafia. Okay, and I knew them well. My brother-in-law was murdered by him, so I knew him well, okay? Okay, and they had a, they had a the ones that I hang out with, you know, the Shylocks up there, they made it clear that you never take everything from somebody. Because when you take everything, they have no hope. And they have no choice but to fight. So they've taken everything from him. And he has no choice but to fight. And that's where we are today. And he realizes the risk, and everybody does. So, you know,
And in case you just tuned in, we're talking about Will Riddle. I mean, none of that name doesn't come up in a while.
yeah, well, this was your attorney who, now,
And was a close
you-
friend.
You two now need to fill me in a little bit more in detail just how this scam works. This is going to the FBI. I mean, this tape is definitely gonna go to the FBI.
Oh, yeah. Well, the day we went to settlement, that's the first thing Riddle had done was he stood right up and, it's on the stenographer's report, and said he had to recuse himself as my counsel. I forget what it said. Josie, help me out on this one here.
Well, he has to be rescued from the case due to the fact that you didn't agree to sign the contract of the property over to him. So, it's right on transcript.
That I wouldn't agree to sign it over to him. So finally, when the judge started saying,
Otherwise, that your case will be dismissed and you will lose
and I'm gonna
everything.
lose everything, and that's when Riddle leans
That's
up
the
right here and
right
says, you're about to lose everything, you're about to lose everything. And I said, okay, then go through your way then. And
And that's where he tricked you into signing over $1 billion worth of property.
but still told me he was gonna give me 30 days to
Yeah, well,
get it all, you know, transferred back.
And it all backs up to not the very beginning. Mark was a personal friend. Will had represented him in several different little civil cases.
Right.
And he was actually representing him for this piece of property against the previous landlord, trying to assist him in keeping that property, buying it, going through the settlement, the whole
Right.
9 yards. So he was his counsel for this piece of property in question.
okay.
Then when Mark, when it came down to it and he was going to lose the building because of all the debt and everything that's going on, Mr. Riddle saw a chance for investment in his own personal life. So instead of, the main issue there would have been, that's a conflict of interest. It's also really just unethical because he was a personal friend and he represented him for that piece of property. So he should not have been allowed to purchase the property, allowed to have anything personal to do with that. He should have recused himself totally and not been allowed to even buy the property.
You're as an secretary, and you know, basically you were his paralegal. Yeah, you were his paralegal at that time, so you know, you can speak of knowledge that you know that the rules prohibit this type of activity.
To me, the clear-cut issue is he should not have been allowed to buy the property because he was acting counsel for the issues surrounding that piece of property
Right.
and that issue. And in a court of law, if you're a counsel, an attorney for someone, and you're representing them for this issue, and then you turn around and are in the opposing position in the same issue, representing the same piece of property or the same person for a different issue, that is unethical. He should not, it should have been clear cut, he should not have been allowed to represent him and then turn around and recuse himself and say, I'm recusing myself, but I'm still gonna buy that piece of property. That shouldn't have been allowed to happen. And what,
No, the bar council should, the idiot bar council, Marvin Hirschman, should have seen through that, you know,
and what should have happened was, when he did go to settlement, when they were going to settlement and Will gave him, Will ended up saying, well, you have 30 days or whatever the time frame was at that time, I don't remember the specifics. When he gave him that time frame, he should have, not only told him his options and assisted him in finding other options, He shouldn't have been behind his back knowing that he was gonna buy that piece of property as an investment for a gain for his personal self. And when he did so, you know, he had done something outside of that time frame. He did it too early, Mr. Riddle. And I don't know the specifics, because at that time I was fairly new, and I only heard bits and pieces at times until the case blew up, and it went to the grievance commission. He had a time frame. It might have been 10 days.
But we can find that out.
Yeah, oh, I'm
It
sure
might
he
have been
did.
10 days. I think there was a 10-day time frame where the settlement was to take place if he did not come forward with what he was supposed to come forward with.
But how could he come forward when he wasn't being advised properly of what
Well, what
was required of him?
the situation at the time was he needed an assistant investment, you know,
He needed an outside investor
right,
to
come in
to
and
tell him.
assist him because he
He was in
had
conflict
lost,
of
he
interest.
had already lost all that due to the flood and due to the debt that was already incurred. So he, Mark, needed a backer,
Right.
you know, an investor. And he had one, but, the investor did not wanna come forward right away because there's a lot of conflict still. He was someone that was well known and didn't want to cause any more conflict, so he was standing back and waiting.
And then this rush to settlement.
And in this rush, there was a time frame, and Mr. Riddle had gotten the paper signed outside of that time frame, inside the time frame that he was not allowed to. So my knowledge of this was after the fact, and I didn't find this out until way after the fact. They brought the documents back, changed the date, got it to the courthouse, did what they had to do to get him legal and make him the legal owner of that property now. And that was done. So it was not only, it stemmed from his personal real estate secretary who did all of his documents for real estate settlements and issues of that sort, who was also a 30-year veteran of the legal system here in Cecil County. She handled all of that. But it stemmed to the clerk of the court who let those documents go through, and the bank. And they were able to take Mark's property illegally because they got that date changed. And
Well, it's not only that. This stems back. Mark got in that situation from Isabel. It
Poor.
stems back that he probably had poor legal advice because he could have went to FEMA. FEMA should have given him money to rebuild his business or something.
Nope, I don't think what I learned about FEMA. What they told me on the phone, residential only.
Well, I'm sorry, half of half of the casinos in New Orleans were built with FEMA funds, and you know that's another fraud on the people of the United States. It's residential market. Otherwise, there would not have been one new business rebuilt in New Orleans. That's an absolute fraud, and you know they come in all the time and help out corporations, and you know your congressman, that's a point where your congressman should have stepped in and said, hold it, you know these are the businesses that employ the people, that the houses who pay the mortgages on the houses in the neighborhood, and if you don't help them rebuild, then we're going to lose the whole food chain here. So, you know, you've been defrauded by FEMA also. So,
But they did give me good advice.
oh, they did?
Yeah, they told me
Go
to
hire
they
Riddle.
told me to go to the SBA. They did, they told me to go to the SBA and take out a loan interest rate loan.
Okay.
Like, that way I could double my debt now.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
You know?
Yeah.
My
that-
bottom debt's still there, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, so, but, okay, so you figure you were out about $250,000 just with the theft of the
at the
property.
start.
And that's, you know, that, had you had that money 2.5 years ago, had you not, these things, you would probably be sitting back today enjoying a little.
Oh, I could have bought the donuts and coffee today.
Yeah. You would probably be worth $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million.
Oh, yeah, anyway.
At minimum. So this is just, I want to let the people know that this is how the system works.
I would have lost my, I do want to forget this. I would have lost my house if it wasn't for my father-in-law. My father-in-law became the bank.
Right. But you shouldn't have had to lose
But if-
any of it.
Oh, right,
You should not have had to forfeit any of
right.
it.
But oh, it
Because
would
of
have,
a
it would have been gone. It would have, no doubt, I couldn't have saved it.
Yeah. Yes. The only reason that I am in my house today is I paid the last payment to the bank 25 days before they took the title of my home and recorded $900,000 worth of judgments against it without my knowledge and consent. 15 years ago. 2 days before they fired my wife from my own business after they made her alter documents, you know, forged documents, giving them control of the business. So I know exactly where you're coming from. The attorneys that I'm talking about, these all fit in the same little category, you know?
Yeah.
They will rob, plunder, and steal from us, and no matter what, but, you know,
Even if you vacation with them,
but,
you
but,
exchange
but
Christmas
I
gifts.
have to tell you, today is day one of something new,
Oh, yeah.
okay? You can go into this court, you can go into circuit court, or my bet is I would go into the United States Federal Court in Baltimore. You have the right to go pro se. Any judge who tells you don't have that right, forget it. You tell him, if he violates your civil and constitutional rights, he's to step down from the bank and forfeit his, from the bench, and he's to forfeit his pension. Because his sole duty as an officer of the court is to uphold and defend this Constitution. And when he doesn't do that, under the 14th Amendment, he is to be removed from the bench and forfeit his pension. Okay? So, I would go onto the internet. I can give you some sites where you can, there's pleadings already made up. You can modify these pleadings, go into the U.S. federal court and file a civil rights suit against Riddle and his firms, in a civil lawsuit, and I'd ask for $30 million to start with. You don't want to go in underestimating it, and file a civil rights suit naming him and the officers of the bank, because that makes it federal. Check out, go to your library, Title 12 of the United States Banking Code. I think it's Title 12, 1334 Sierra. It is the truth in lending statement. Everything that you have told me here is a violation of your rights and your liberties.
You know, we all do. Thank you very much. I mean, that you have put in the, you've done all the legwork.
I've been
doing this for
I've got 5,000 docket entries in 107 court cases.
Yeah.
Okay, where they stole my businesses for $5, and they're all documented, so you see them on the website. Okay, and you know, and I did this because God.
Put it on your heart.
Yeah. There's a reason. I have no idea. I can't understand how a person with a 7th grade education
I don't agree.
could possibly get this far. But I'm here,
Right. For the conviction.
and it was a pleasure to have you here today. And like I said, we will get to the bottom of this. We will.
Well, this is a big step.
We will make this story.
This is a big step. Josie here, the French lady who you'll be speaking to, is, she has done so much investigating. She has put this, that's how she found found you.
I'm lucky because you know.
And we have taken steps and steps, but this is gonna be a big step. So I ask anybody that's watching this to send them to secretjusticenews.com, right?
Yeah. Secret Justice YouTube.
YouTube, and they're trying to pass this around as much as you can. I think the more people we get to see it, Bill O'Reilly, that's who I really want to see it. prime time.
Well, I'm trying to get my